Dr. Hotez, thank you so much for taking the time. Let's jump straight into this thing. How much should we be blaming South Africa for this new variant? I mean, basically, South Africa destroyed the world, right? This is our fault.
Yeah, I mean, this is so demoralizing. What's being done now to the people of not only South Africa but Botswana and neighboring countries, Malawi, et cetera. Look, it goes like this: our worst pandemic variant threats, right? The Alpha variant. How did that happen? It arose out of an unvaccinated population out of the United Kingdom at the end of 2020. So we already knew that if you leave large populations unvaccinated, that's how the worst variants arise. And then in 2021, it happened again with the Delta variant arising out of an unvaccinated population in India. And that's what we're living with right now in the United States and most of the world. So what did people think was going to happen if we refused to vaccinate the African continent and helped Africa vaccinate itself? This was both predicted and predictable. So the rise of Omicron was inevitable from the simple fact that the African continent is virtually entirely unvaccinated, maybe 6%, that rounds off to zero. And the point is, there was never the leadership, the policy decision to work with African governments to get the African people vaccinated. And so I feel the people in Southern Africa are paying for this twice. One, they're not vaccinated, and now we're going to punish them further on implementing travel restrictions, which we already know don't work. They haven't worked this entire epidemic. Why would they work now?
Let me ask you this question, though. This is really confusing, I think, for a lot of people in and around the variants. And I think it's a two-part question. Number one, how do we know, or do we know, where this variant comes from? You know, because people say South African variant or not, but it was sequenced, as I understand, in South Africa. Nobody knows where it's from, correct? And then the second part of that is, are we not only discovering a variant now, but not where the variant is? Like, if people start testing all over the world and they now understand what to test for, aren't we just going to see, you know, Omicron popping up everywhere as if it is spreading when in fact it's already there?
Of course. So that's always my first talking point when people are wringing their hands about the Omicron variant. They're saying, oh my God, but it's in multiple European countries and in Australia, in Canada, maybe the United States. And I say, well, yeah, that's been true of every variant we've had. By the time we identify a new variant, it's almost always all over the world. And so the fact that it's in multiple European countries, in Australia and Hong Kong and Canada, like the US, that always happens. It's not unique to Omicron. It's true of every variant. From the very beginning, we've known this. For instance, when we were all focused on enacting travel bans from China, right as the epidemic began, the pandemic began, what happened? This virus came in from Southern Europe to ignite the horrible epidemic in New York City in the spring of 2020.
Right.
That was a lesson in itself. By the time we identify a new variant, it's already gone global.
So looking at the situation now, you have people panicking, you have stock markets tumbling, you have, people canceling their travel plans. Nobody knows what to do. Airlines said they're canceling flights to and from South Africa. Then they said they're going to undo it from the UK. Governments don't seem to know what they're doing. Was this a knee-jerk reaction? Did they react without thinking first, or did they do the right thing in getting ahead of it because they don't know what the new variant is all about? Where do you see this going as a scientist who's actually studying these viruses?
Well, I think it's a little bit of that. I think a lot of it is the fact that these governments and the UN agencies were heavily criticized in the past for not reacting fast enough. And in some ways, I think this is an overcompensation. But when you break it down, I think we have to be more realistic about how serious this variant is. First of all, the fact that it's in multiple countries, we've already said that's not a surprise. That happens with just about every variant. Point number one. Point number two, in terms of severity of illness, there's no evidence I've seen that the illness produced by the Omicron variant is worse than anything else that we've seen. So take those two things off the table. In terms of its resistance to vaccines, it will almost certainly not be as susceptible to the original vaccinations as the original strains. But we've seen this before. We've had another variant out of South Africa in 2020 called the B.1.351, the beta, which should have been a wake-up call back then, and then one out of South America, the Lambda. And the point is there was enough crossover, or what Tony Fauci calls spillover, from our existing vaccines to partially cross-neutralize it. So my hope is that that's the case with our current vaccines, especially for individuals who've gotten 3 mRNA vaccines where there's a 3 RNA doses where there's a 30 to 40-fold rise in virus neutralizing antibodies. So I'm hopeful there'll be at least partial protection, and we'll know that over the next week or so. So our lab is looking at our vaccine against the Omicron variant. Moderna's doing the same, Pfizer's doing the same, J&J's doing the same. So we'll know that hopefully over the next week. The best thing people can do right now is to use all the vaccines that are available. So get 3 doses if you can of mRNA, vaccinate your kids, and if you've been infected and recovered, if you can get vaccinated on top of that, that's the best, gives you the best possibility of helping you weather these new variants.
Do you think, before I let you go, do you think like scientists / whoever was marketing this, do you think they made a mistake by calling it a vaccine? Do you think that's confused some people? Because they say, well, if I have a polio vaccine, then I'm fine, I don't get polio. If I get the measles vaccine, I don't get measles. Do you think they should have just called this like the shot, like a COVID shot, like you have a flu shot?
I think, if they had always from the beginning said this was a 3-dose vaccine, then people would have understood this better. And as a 3-dose vaccine, I really do think it halts not only symptomatic illness and hospitalization, but there's some data now showing it could also halt infection as well. It's just that it wasn't marketed that way. It wasn't billed that way. But, if you look at all our pediatric vaccines, for instance, what do we do with our kids? We give a series of primary immunizations. You wait 6 months to a year, and then you give the boost. And that's what gives you the long-lasting, durable protection. The point is, the mRNA vaccines were just going by the same playbook that every other vaccine we have. And I tried to give that message back in January, February. But I think, with the other problem that we had was the company CEOs, where we're sending out these press releases. And, when company CEOs send out press releases, they're not meant for you or for me. They're meant for the shareholders.
Right.
To spectacularize their accomplishments and to jack up the stock prices. And they were very effective at doing that. But it was tone deaf to the impact and how these vaccines would be perceived by the public.
Well, again, Dr. Hotez, thank you so much for the time, and good luck to you out there.
Thank you, Trevor. And thanks for all your great stuff. I really appreciate it.
Appreciate you. Don't forget, people, Dr. Hotez's book, Preventing the Next Pandemic, is available now.